Okay. Okay, are we all back?
We're good to go. Thank you.
Okay, good. All right. Greg is not going to be with us this morning, so I'm going to just fill in for Greg. The minutes from our last meeting. First of all, I guess we have to approve this agenda. Does anybody have any additions or suggestions to add to today's agenda? Okay. Does somebody make a motion that we accept today's agenda?
I'll motion to approve today's agenda.
Yeah, I second Joel.
Okay, thanks, Bob and Joel. All right. And then we have to look at last month's meetings. Was there any corrections or additions to that? Okay. Would somebody please move that we accept last month's minutes?
I move, Joel.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. Okay. There was a special meeting on May 25th, and you should all have had copies of those minutes too. Avni, although I was not formally, I had a tough time getting on that meeting. I was actually at that meeting. So if you could just please add my name to the people who were there.
Yep, I'll add you on there.
Huh?
I'll add you on there.
Okay,
Yep,
thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, other than that, does anyone have any comments on this set of minutes? Okay, then motion please to accept this set of minutes for the special meeting on May 25th.
A motion to approve those minutes.
Bob,
I'm not
thank you.
able to see the bottom of it. Can somebody remind me where we went on those two easements?
Yes, okay. Both of the easements were approved.
Okay.
Anything
Yeah,
else?
I'll second.
Okay, thanks, Bob. Okay. All right. So do we have any members of the public with us today? If so, welcome. And if not, then we'll move ahead. We need updates from our land conservation partners. So Southern App, I saw Jess on there. Okay, so Southern App, what's new?
Good morning. Not a lot to share. Michelle's been busy, I think, getting this board some projects to look at, but we nothing new closing in this county since our last meeting, but lots on the docket, so stay tuned.
Okay, good. Thank you. Is somebody here from Conserve Carolina? I didn't see Tom or.
No, I didn't hear back from anyone.
You didn't hear back from them. Okay. Do Ariel, do you or Avni know if anything's going on with them in our county?
Say that again?
I said, do you know if anything is going on with them in Buncombe County?
Other than the project that we approved at the last meeting, no, we haven't heard any updates.
Okay, fine. All right. Riverlink, I saw Riverlink.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, we've kind of set a date now for Karen Craig Nolan Park's dedication ceremony, end of August. Otherwise, we're working on this really tiny property that we own. It's like 1/4 of an acre in West Asheville. I've been working on it for a year and a half now to turn it into a pocket park. And we just recently got funding from the Tipping Point grant to work towards that. That's most of the things to report on in my world.
Okay. Karen Craig Nolan, the ribbon cutting for her park. Do you have an exact date yet?
Yes, but I'm not sure if Lisa has shared it yet, so I'm
Okay.
gonna hold off.
Fine.
But as soon as I get the okay, I'll let you guys know. But yeah, end of August.
Okay, Great. Thanks very much.
Of course.
Hannah, do you anticipate that little piece of property is gonna need a Land Conservation Advisory Board review or approval for any of it?
I don't think so. I just want to share because it was something interesting we're doing, but we own it. So there's not, I don't really think there'll be anything to do.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is Joel. Got a quick question for Jess. Excuse me. And it's the same as Bob almost. Any of the projects you're working on, do you expect any of them to be proposed to the Land Conservation Board for any kind of fee supplements before the next county budget is approved?
I think that Michelle has already, she's been in communication with Ariel about the projects they had coming up. I think Ariel, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think she's already requested everything. And anything else coming down the pipe is for the next fiscal year.
Yeah, we've requested all of the funding from fiscal year 23, and fiscal year 24's budget was approved last night. So
Woohoo!
yeah.
Excellent.
So
So
that's
Joel,
750,000 still reserved for the use between both of our land conservation boards, in addition to the bond. So that's exciting.
Good. Good. Okay, any questions for Riverlink or Southern App before we move on? Okay, well, Ariel and Avni, it's your program.
All right, so yeah, I wanted to mention that we got the budget passed last night, so that's very exciting. Let's see, with Ag Advisory Board, we've been prepping kind of our project approvals for both the upcoming grant season this fall, as well as for our first few requests to the bond. So we're hoping to, at this point, we have about, I think, 8 or 9 projects that will be going through that project approval process this summer with Ag Advisory Board. We're kind of starting that slightly earlier than normal because my maternity leave starts in a few weeks, and so this will be my last board meeting for a few months. And I also wanted to mention, I think last December or last fall, when LCAB approved your calendar of meeting dates for this calendar year, you had decided to not meet in July. So I just wanted to remind the board that that was a decision. You can change that if you want to meet in July, but I just wanted to remind the board that that was what you decided.
Okay, Ariel.
Yeah, Avni, do you have anything to add?
I think the only thing I'd add is we're working on trying to update the evaluation based on some of the feedback we got, a couple of times when evaluating projects. So that's something that's in the works still.
Which would be specializing it, a certain form for farmland preservation easement, or a certain form for more of a mountain lands, wildland kind of easement. So, we find that one form isn't suiting all projects. So,
Okay. Okay, good.
This is Joe, either for Avni or Ariel, with these bond projects coming up, and my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, some are going to involve some land conservation issues. If they're approved for, fees from the bond, will those be coming to the board, or is it? I mean, are they operating mutually exclusive, or is there an overlap there? That's what I'm not clear on.
yeah, so it'll work very similarly to our existing project approval process. So projects that are coming from Buncombe Soil and Water, Farmland Preservation Program, we will be presenting those to the Ag Advisory Board. And then once the Ag Advisory Board approves them, we will present them to the commissioners. And so similarly, any land trust projects that typically would come to LCAB would go through that similar process. So if bond projects won't be presented to both boards, they'll be just presented to the board that they're, typically going to. So if Southern App, Conserving Carolina, or Riverlink have bond projects to propose, those will come straight to LCAB. We'll do that similar project approval process with evaluating them, going on site visit, having a presentation, and then once LCAB approves that, we'll take those to the commissioners and officially request.
With some of these bond projects coming up, I'm going to make the assumption it may have a busy year, the board, but beyond that, not that familiar with what kind of projects these are. Are these projects going to be much larger in scope than some of the ones we've been handling?
I don't necessarily think so. I think that they really just need to meet that kind of checklist of easement purchase criteria and fall into very similar buckets to what the board already approves. I don't think that they'll necessarily be significantly larger or different than our standard easement projects. Because they'll be using the same evaluation system. And I think it could be that, the passive recreation lands projects that are going to that new subcommittee that Bob Gale and Bob Turner are on, and Matt Fusco, sorry. Those projects I expect to be substantially larger and substantially more expensive. But my initial feeling right now is that the ones coming to LCAB and Ag Advisory are not necessarily going to be significantly different.
Okay, thanks.
But that brings me to a kind of idea. Would it be possible for the folks on the passive recreation subcommittee to give like a brief update of what you guys are up to? I don't know if that would be valuable for the other board members.
Yeah. And Matt and Bob definitely weigh in because I'm sure I'll leave stuff out. Basically, all I was going to say was that we spent our first couple meetings getting to know the other people on the board. There's park and recreation staff that have joined, and we have a chair, a young man who's the chair, volunteered, which was great, and I think Matt is the vice chair. So basically, we've been setting up our committee and came up with bylaws and all that stuff. They've had the parks lawyer, the county lawyer there, and that kind of thing. So it's all been setting everything up. And let me see, there's something else. Oh, and how we go about approving things. So that's what's coming to my mind at this moment on a half a cup of coffee. So Matt and Bob, you can weigh in. I'm sure Matt, you'll think of things I haven't said.
So the county is working on criteria for evaluation on projects that might come to the subcommittee. And so hopefully we'll be seeing some progress on that through the summer. I think they're trying to shoot for August to have that wrapped up. And then they will have their kind of application forms and things like that pulled together. So that sounds like they're shooting for fall to be able to start taking applications, but I don't think we've seen a firm date on that.
Yeah, they are moving very quickly and efficiently. It seems like a good group of people we're working with, and in this case, if I remember the earlier meetings right, the county staff will be putting forth projects, and then we approve that and they send them on to the county council, something like that. Is that do I have that right, Matt?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we may provide them with the evaluation forms based on our review, but I believe that's right. We would make recommendation to the commission, and then the county commission would make final determination on approval or not.
The valuation forms, Matt, and, you know, in your process, would that be shared with the LCAB board, you know, or will it just become public when things are presented to the county commissioners?
I don't, as far as that process, I'm not sure. If it's a conservation project, I would presume that it would probably have been seen by the board already. And you know, and if the board, the Conservation Advisory Board supports it, and it's also being requested for funding through the grant, then we would see it at the Passive Recreation Subcommittee, possibly following that. But we have not gotten into the detail of exactly how that process is going to come down yet. So we haven't even seen anything on an evaluation, although it has been mentioned that, you know, they're well aware of our evaluations and how we do it and how the Ag Board does it.
Yeah, and since we are a subcommittee of the LCAB, so I guess it will have to somehow be shown to the LCAB.
It's my
Yeah.
understanding that it's not going to be presented. It's my understanding that because there are representatives from the Park and Recreation Board and the LCAB board, this subcommittee is the advisory board for the passive recreation program. So it's my understanding that all those projects would then do a similar project approval process with the subcommittee rather than coming to LCAB or the passive recreation board in addition to the subcommittee. So I think it's going to flow similar to how LCAB works, but the subcommittee will be that approval board. But we're always welcome to share applications with LCAB, you know, the evaluation form and all of that. They can be, you know, shared because it's all public.
Do you know what if could a project conceivably go for LCAB funding and then also the passive or the passive recreation funding separately and get both, or get one or the other?
I think the short answer is yes. We don't have, it doesn't mean that they're going to be prioritized if they're going, you know, like because they're going, you know, they've got funding from one pool, they would be, you know, have a greater chance to get funding from another. But I think there's nothing at this point stopping a project from applying to both pots of money.
It on the top of my head, it seems to me like we shouldn't do that because we don't want to rob money from the LCAB, and you know, but yeah, that those are good questions.
Yeah,
I think that's the beauty of the advisory board too, is that you guys and the, you know, subcommittee is that you can kind of make those calls within the board. The evaluation system may or may not prioritize that. So
yeah, that's a good point, Bob. And, you know, because let me play devil's advocate, having spent my whole career in government, okay, and trying to work between different parts of government, you know, and sometimes you end up with some turf battles. Hopefully on the county level, and especially this county, that doesn't happen, because that goes back to Bob's question: where does the money come from? You know, as far as the bond versus the budgeted LCAB money, okay. Does LCAB have the authority to say, no, take the money out of the bond, okay? And also, the subcommittee that, you know, Bob and Matt are on, you know, your subcommittee is going to be dealing with evaluations. Now, what happens with the evaluation process you come up with, or the criteria, differs from the current, you know, LCAB evaluation criteria that we use? Is there a way to resolve that?
Well, first of all, you know, the subcommittee was formed as a result of the bond. So
Okay.
I think that answers your first question pretty much. I mean, the money comes from the bond.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know about sharing the two things. I don't think that happens. So, but we can get those questions answered and clarified. But it just doesn't seem like that would happen. to me. But the other thing, what was I going to say? What was the last thing you said? I'm sorry.
No, I was
Joel?
talking about the evaluation criteria.
Oh, yeah. So the lands that are going to be proposed under this subcommittee are unlike, they are similar in a way, but they're like, there might be things like greenways, things with a little bit of infrastructure, but not much. Then there's some that completely passive. It's passive, but it will be properties that people use, as I understand it. So it's a little different from the conservation easements that are kind of off limits or only have once a year hikes maybe by the land trust. So it is a different thing. So the evaluation criteria is being, it's still kind of being tweaked and adjusted, but I think it's a little bit different.
Yeah, and I think too, Bob, to add to that, that one of the things that it'll be good to get one of these projects under our belt and see how
Right.
things go. But right now, there's still a lot of unanswered questions. I think one of the things that came up at the last meeting, I think, was, you know, there's costs of making some of these parcels that may come to us accessible to all, you know, the cost and the management and the maintenance of that. And if we do, someone brought up, choose to actually purchase land, then who's going to manage that in perpetuity, you know? So there's a lot of stuff that we don't understand. Quite haven't figured out yet. I don't think.
And all of those be on the evaluation system. So that's one of the big reasons I think that the evaluation system will be different from LCAB. You know, there'll be a handful of criteria that are similar, but yeah, we got to figure out the suitability of the entire project.
Yeah, I just bring these questions up. I'm expecting the answers now.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it is a.
Yeah, we may be dealing with, as this gets started, and Bob brought up the good point, maybe dealing with a horse of a different color, okay, than what we've done in the past. So, you know, I think these are just questions for people in the LCAB and everything to think about this.
Sure.
Till the process starts working.
Yeah.
It is a work in progress as the county staff, you know, we're all doing this, a new thing. So, and so that will, you know, evolve a little bit, and we'll get better answers. Also, we had a great presentation from the county. Her name escapes me, but on the county's comprehensive plan, and I was really, I didn't. Yeah, Jillian, thanks. I did not keep up with that plan the whole time it was going. A lot of you may have, but I was really impressed with the equity thing being the center, and everything around it, decisions made and everything, has an equity piece and accessibility piece. I thought it was a really pretty awesome presentation she gave.
And I'm happy to share that with the LCAB. It's the Buncombe County 2043 Comprehensive Plan. And they, I believe, just recently wrapped that up. And it, like Bob says, it identifies, you know, areas for growth. It also tries to identify areas that are underserved that would potentially deserve better services depending on what it might be. It could be transportation, tech, connectivity. It could be multiple different things. And it's kind of a work in progress. Also, in addition, the Buncombe County Parks and Rec is working on a master plan for kind of a facilities thing, and will there evaluate also what their assets are throughout the county, and would potentially even be able to provide some direction as far as additional areas that would be focused on. So there was a lot there, and then we have seen a short draft criteria, which, like Bob said, includes equity. It includes accessibility. One of the things that we had discussed in the meeting is the definition of accessibility, and understanding that there's an ADA accessibility as well as accessibility from underserved communities, or let's call it geographic accessibility. So that's something that'll be considered in the criteria for the projects that come before that subcommittee.
Okay,
I
good.
have- Oh, sorry. I have one last thing, answering one of Joel's questions. Sorry, Nancy. So you had a question on, I think we answered the question of bond funds will be the sole funding mechanism for the passive recreation lands projects. But now that we have $750,000 from the county budget in addition to bond funds, I think the way that we're approaching it at this point is that as a project is proposed to LCAB, so say Southern Appalachian brings a project forward, they can suggest, that they want to request this from the fiscal year funding versus the bond funding or vice versa. And then the board makes that final decision on how they're going to recommend, requesting those funds from the commissioner. So if you feel like it's a better bond project and you don't want to ask from the fiscal year funding, that's up to the bond. That's kind of how we're approaching it with Ag Advisory Board. We make the suggestion, and then the board makes the final recommendation on which.
Yeah, Ariel, just to add on to that. So is that a black and white line either or can it be both?
Like, would we split funding between the two?
Yeah.
Like a transaction cost request from the fiscal year funding and the easement purchase come from the bond? I don't think that's unrealistic. I think we could do that. But they can't get
Yeah. Well,
they're
I'm
still limited, in I guess.
yeah,
think-
I'm sure the attorneys will look at this.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, county attorney's been in a couple of our meetings, and they are reviewing the stuff that the passive lands folks are doing,
Mm.
or the county is doing.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate all of you trying to answer my questions on this. I think for me, it just prepares a little bit as it is going to be entering a really good new phase. Okay.
Well, they're great questions, Joel. And, now that we're dealing with two pools of money, we've got to figure out how best to manage that.
Right. Right.
And the county needs to understand, and I know that they're working on this, about what I see is the real big expense that is going to be basically an expense in perpetuity, is the stewardship and the maintenance and the liability of having people on these properties. And that is something that to me is where the bond money is going to be so important. We can certainly look at a project and say it needs money for appraisals, it needs money for transaction costs. But when it gets into, how many rangers are you going to have to use to take care of a piece of property that's basically open to the public? And that's Park and Recs, and I think
Well,
the fact
yeah,
That was discussed. That question was brought up and there was some discussion about it. I can't remember where it ended up, but that was a good point that was brought up.
Yeah,
it's something
yeah.
that they're going to have to work through, and the
Yes.
money in the bond probably wouldn't necessarily fund the long-term management. It may be that there's other avenues that they explore depending on the type of project. There may be some projects that would fall under the umbrella of Parks and Recs and they can manage it themselves, or there may be certain projects that ultimately end up with some type of a fee for service or something. So they are well aware of, we can throw a bunch of money at things and have these great projects and get them started, but there's going to need to be some additional type of funding source or commitment from the county for growth to be able to manage these spaces long term, for sure.
That's correct. That's correct.
And I'm happy to
And
give an
that-
update at each of our meetings as to what the last subcommittee meeting was, or if that might be helpful for us.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
good.
that'd be great.
Yeah, to hear from you or about the Bob Matt show. And
That's right.
and again, I think those costs are going to be significant depending on how much property we open up.
Mhm.
Yep.
And who has access to it. And, you know, ADA, the certifications are not cheap. So the counties.
I wouldn't necessarily, I don't know that they'll have to go for certifications, but they will have to have certain elements that are ADA accessible within
Right,
some of the
Right.
areas, depending on the nature of the project.
right.
That's right.
Right. All
Yeah,
right.
and-
So Avni, if you'll add that to our agenda as an agenda item, we'll report on that every time.
That's a good idea. Very good idea, Bob.
Yeah, Nancy,
Okay.
you bring up a good point also, because from my experience on the Board of Adjustment, the word access, okay, to properties, I'll just say Board Adjustment, our hands are tied on many of those issues due to current state laws. And, you know, that could come up, I don't know. It depends what kind of access, especially public access to there is to the properties,
And that
like the infrastructure.
Right.
that sort of makes me think, well, one thing we should clarify at our meetings, the subcommittee meetings or whatever is, so people don't get confused over the terms access and accessibility regarding
Yeah.
inequity. Those two things could get confusing too. So
Right.
yeah, there's lots of new stuff popping up here.
Right, right. Okay, any other questions?
I just wanted to alert everyone. Hi, this is Angelica with the Communications Department. I put 2 different links in the chat.
Could
Wait,
somebody,
wait.
we can't hear you.
Yeah,
Sounds like you're talking through a paper bag.
Let's see, is that better?
Ah,
Yeah.
way better.
Okay. This is Angelica Tyler. I work with the Communications Department. I put 2 links in the chat to the Open Space Bond site, specifically linking the passive recreation part and the passive recreation land subcommittee meeting page. So all of those materials from the meetings, you can review there, including the videos and those presentations Bob was referencing. But also there's a survey there about the passive recreation lands evaluation criteria, which is still out. It's out in the public. We're still getting public feedback. We're taking it to various subcommittees in different departments at the county. So all of that is still very much in play and needing public feedback, especially from experts like you all. So I encourage you to explore those links and especially to scroll down and find that passive recreation lands survey link. But all of those
Shared with the group through the email that Avni sends, the update from the Jill, who is the county representative for Passive Lands Recreation Committee, Subcommittee, and then also the presentation that Jillian presented at our last meeting.
okay, good. Okay, thank you for, my dog is sneezing. Thank you for adding that information. Question though, if for those of us who may not want to read the entire plan, is it possible that we can ask the Matt people to bring us next August? Would not be next month, but next in August, a summary of questions of the hot topics that are going on, because I do think that everyone has said it. This is kind of a new day for the county, and there are things that are going to have to be explored and considered before this is all set in stone. And if you could help us each month, bring us up to date on that.
We can. What I shared with you is not a full copy of the plan. It's just the truncated presentation that Jillian provided. So it gives you an overview
Okay.
of where they are with the plan. And what was provided
Okay, good.
to the Passive Lands Recreation Subcommittee is an update on where things are. And so we may get something in August, and it may get pushed back, but we'll pass this information along to the LCAB
Yeah.
as soon as we get it.
Also, I think that
Okay,
and shared at the last meeting or at the subcommittee meeting that the planning department is going to do kind of like a comprehensive plan roadshow starting over the next few months. So if you would like, we can like try to get on that schedule so that she can also make that presentation to LCAB.
That might be a good idea. I mean,
That
it
would be a good
was very
idea, yeah.
informative, and she's, you know, it's comprehensive plan related. So, it's, but they are doing some stuff with this subcommittee stuff too. So that I think that'd be a great idea.
Okay, we'll get that.
Good.
Yeah, the one good thing about this discussion this morning is, Ariel, you won't have to deal with this till next fall sometime.
I know that's a really good thing.
You can just go through childbirth, okay?
Yeah, I know. Just
Okay. Anything else that we need to look at?
Well, I gave Bob a shout out at his retirement party from LCAB.
Thank you, Matt. I couldn't
Pretty proud that
make it.
we still have him on board with us, even though he's retiring from Mountain True.
Yep.
Yeah, you all somehow convinced me to serve another 3-year term on this board as of beginning last January. So then I'm stuck on the public, the passive recreation one too, for the same reason. So I'm a volunteer though. I'm not an employee anymore, but I do have my business starting, and I'm already getting a couple of people wanting to pay me to give my consultation services. So I'm beginning to feel like maybe that big salary cut I just took, maybe I will survive in my retirement after all. I want to let everybody know I'm putting on the chat. Excuse me. Let's see. I'm trying to get down to where I wrote it and send that. Let me see. For some reason, it's not. Oh, there we go. Let's see if this does it. There you go. There's my new email. Please change to my email, botanybg85@gmail.com for all future stuff. My Mountain True email, I asked them to keep it up for a month, and they are, but just go ahead and change over now, and we won't have you won't lose me somewhere along the way.
Yeah, and Bob, as a new entrepreneur, congratulations on your new tax deductions.
That's right. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, we're a little early. It's wonderful. Does anybody else have anything else we need to discuss today?
Yeah, and I'm sure if anything comes up, we can handle it by email. I mean, most groups take July off anyway.
Yeah, at least in this country.
Yeah,
In Europe, it's August.
yeah.
Okay.
I
All
see
right.
Sarah's got an extra committee member there.
What? Oh, yeah.
Is that the Phoebes?
Phoebe, she can help make quorum if we need to. Have an extra member.
Hey, Phoebe.
Do you hear Matt Fusco?
Okay, Ariel or Avni, do you have anything? All right. Well, motion to adjourn.
Okay.
Joe, second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Robert. Okay, our meeting is adjourned this month, and have a good July, and we'll talk in August.
Okay.
Okay,
Thanks,